Welcome back to the crypt. You've heard this dialogue before, right? Real writers write every day. Pros write every day. It only takes a few minutes. You really have no excuse not to do it. Disclaimer before we get too far into this, because I know people get real bent out of shape about this kind of stuff. Like all writing tools and habits, some things will work for some writers, some things won't. I'm not coming for people who write every day and enjoy that and that fulfills them and gives them what they need in their practice and their craft. If that is you, I'm not coming for your throat. I'm really not. Instead, I'm really going after the idea that everyone across the board needs to be doing the exact same thing to get a result. That there's only one way to be doing this, which just is not true. Virginia Woolf, a prolific and experienced writer, she suffered from chronic migraines and often went weeks or even months bedridden from these chronic migraines, unable to attend to her projects, either by order of her doctor or order of her husband and even lover Vita, who would encourage her to rest as much as possible, not even allowing her to write. And sometimes even she wouldn't be able to write. And some of her letters to Vita, she would describe just frustration over how long it had been since she touched projects, specifically projects that were very difficult, such as To the Lighthouse, which took her quite a long time to create compared to Orlando, which is my personal favorite, that was done in a huge burst of inspiration. So it obviously didn't stop her from completing the project, and she's hardly alone in this. To bring in a more modern author, Cheryl Strayed noted in an interview that she was a binge writer, meaning that because she, for the longest time, was not a full-time author, she had all of this other stuff going on, including other jobs, she had to write when she could write, which was random and couldn't always be accounted for. So she would have these chunks when she would write. Kind of sounds familiar, maybe like something I do. You're either writing or not writing. That quote is taken from an interview where Neil Gaiman was specifically asked about his writing routine. In other words, what he's doing when he is intentionally writing, intentionally working. This is a workday question. How are you productive during a workday? And his answer, it's boredom or writing, which is actually a pretty good way. Like removing distractions is a common tried and true method for quite a few people. Not everyone, but quite a few people do use it in a variety of fields, not just writing. So that's essentially what that boils down to. And when asked about the secret to being a good author, which is a whole nother topic I might get to at one point, very similar advice: write, and write a lot, which a lot of people have now taken and ran with it and said, well, that means you're writing every single day. But the reality is, because so many people, specifically those of us who aren't on the map yet, have full-time jobs, how much time are we actually able to write, and how much could we realistically get done, and how reliable is that writing has always been a huge discuss and debate. And there are lots of arguments about just how valid writing every day is, especially because the idea of it only takes 5 or 10 minutes isn't always realistic for some people, especially if it takes you a while to get in and out of a scene. It feels like it would take most of that 5 to 10 minutes just to get back into your scene, and then only to be yanked back out because you have to rush to work. So logistically, it doesn't really work. And also, like I said, there are lots of authors that have written fantastic works of art, and they did not do it writing it every single day. Some did, some didn't. Crazy. It's almost like the human race is very varied expanse of many different kinds of people, and some things work for them and some things don't, because we're all, different people. Now I want to address the more personal side of the write daily. It's really easy for young writers to be discouraged quite easily, and for imposter syndrome and doubt to just eat away, cause them to freeze. And this is especially true because when you're young, you're reading a lot, obviously, because you love books, and you end up comparing yourself and where you are to these full-time authors. That saying of writing every day and really enforcing that is what writers do, what all writers are supposed to do. It really, for me anyway, it really messed with me in college. I felt so lost because no matter how many times I tried to write every day, no matter how small I tried to make the goal or how big, it didn't seem to matter. Maybe I would have a good streak of a couple days at a time, but inevitably a day would happen where I just didn't have the energy. A large reason for that being I tend to fixate. So once I do get in a scene, getting in a scene can be kind of difficult for me, but once I get into the scene, stay in it for a really long time. And sometimes if I'm lucky, I can come back out of the scene within about 30 minutes, which isn't too bad, but I can't count on that every time. And there are times when I'm on a really good roll and I don't want to stop that, and before I know it, it's been 3 hours and I'm a little drained. It was good writing. I got a lot of progress done, but that was labor. Energy that's just been drained out of me, and if I have to now like rush off to work, I'm now in energy deficit and unable to complete tasks that for me are very mentally taxing at my job. So this would equal inevitably that there were times I could not do writing every day. There'd be a day where I was just completely depleted of energy and I was barely able to function. So writing was that thing that I was just like, I can't do it right now. I physically don't have the energy. And when something like that happened, that's when the guilt would set in, because I failed. I failed at the task that everyone says every good writer does. I failed at the task that professionals do, that I should be able to do, especially when the language is, well, if you love it, you do it every day, which is, in retrospect, kind of a crazy thing to say, because I wouldn't say that to any other art form. Like, for a potter, I wouldn't get in their face and be like, you didn't touch clay on Sunday, you're not a real potter. Like, that's kind of crazy. At those times when I failed the ritual, the daily ritual of writing, when I failed, I didn't see all of the things I had completed. I wasn't able to see in those moments the 5 or 6 days I was able to write. I only saw the days I wasn't, the days I failed. And those days felt so heavy to me. And by the time I graduated from university, I hit a depression wave so strong. I spent 3 years not writing because I couldn't nail what I was told was the basic of being an author. I felt like a failure. I felt like a sham. I felt like a fake. I only pulled myself out of it when I realized one day, sitting at my horrible, dead-end, abusive office job, staring at a computer, plugging in numbers instead of writing, and realizing that all of my writing that I had done, because I had completed works, I had completed entire novels and multiple short stories, and they were just sitting on my computer, not being utilized, that really made me angry. The idea that because I couldn't write every day, because I couldn't get this one thing, and when I realized, like, it didn't matter, like, I already had completed stuff. I had already finished things. I had started writing and finished it. I just hadn't done it in like a straight every single day touching the project way. I had done it here and there, bits and pieces and chunks. And why wasn't I seeing that as the progress it was? And so I kicked myself back into gear, got back into things, moved countries while I was at it, and here I am, where I am getting draft 2 looked over by other writers. By the way, if you want in on that, we've got another week or so for a sign up, so links down below if you are curious to read my novel and give me feedback. I had to get over the fact that I'm not doing this the way most people do, and that that's okay. And also, I do think it's kind of interesting. I don't think we should demonize when people don't want to do an art form every single day. Some people don't want to be doing the same art form every day. They want to switch tasks. And you know what? That's fine. Why is it a big deal? It doesn't mean that I love it any less. That's like telling me like, oh, well, you haven't read a book about jellyfish in a while. That must mean you don't really love jellyfish. You want to fight? I would also like to touch on the fact that I also don't want to hate my writing. Like, I don't want to hate what I do. And I felt like, again, like back during the 3 years I wasn't writing, like I almost resented some of my art because I felt like it was an obligation, something that I had to do when I was told to do it instead of doing it when I wanted. Like, it was such a different story when I was a kid, which if you want more information, I have a blog post that covers this topic a little differently in a slightly different like direction, if you want to check that out. Linked down below. I just don't want to hate my work. And I recognize that when you become a full-time writer, you do need to be careful about that and switching projects and not forgetting your passion. But I'm in a position where I'm full-time working and very exhausted, so I'm already at kind of a limit to begin with. So I do have to be careful. I don't want to hate something that I love. I don't want to lose my love for this. Again, coming back to my disclaimer though, some people legitimately love having that structure, and that structure is everything, and that makes them feel satisfied in the writing by touching it every single day. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are one of those people that system works for you, go for it. My self-worth as an artist isn't attached to how much I produce in that art form daily. And I feel like that's something that took me years to learn. Want to be a writer? Write. And then write some more. And then finish things. Pretty sure he said that in the masterclass. And he's probably said it in lots of interviews too, because it's true. It seems so simple, and it is. But that's just what it is. You write, and you finish what you started. And that's it. Well, I mean, to be a writer, if you want to be an author, you have to go through the publishing thing. It's a whole thing. But if it's just the writing we're talking about, just write and finish what you write. And that's it. That's all of it. Let me put it this way. I don't think writing every day makes you a good writer. I think writing makes you a good writer. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. I like this kind of stuff. It is more nuanced. There's more ways you can pull this discussion, I'm sure. Please feel free to tell me what you think in the comments below.